Hey, this is Thom Zahler, creator of Long Distance, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Are you ready? I'm waiting for you.
Hello and welcome to The Pullbag. We interrupt Robin Hood month to bring you this latest interview. I am, of course, TFG and Mike, and my guest is a returning guest. Second time he has been here inside The Pullbag is Mr. Thom Zahler. Hello, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay with not being okay.
We're all damaged in our own way.
That's true. Very, very true. I may actually commission you to make my own warning label at some point. That'll come later, folks. That'll come way later. But anyway, Thom Zahler, for those of you who don't know, writer, artist, all that good stuff, did Love and Capes, Long Distance, which is still my number one favorite creator-owned comic. Works on pony stuff for IDW. You're doing which series now, currently?
Which of the pony series? I'm on the Friendship is Magic.
Okay.
I have a couple issues that'll be coming out over the summer for that series.
Okay. So you've been doing that. You've been doing the convention thing. You also have two creator-owned series, one through IDW and one that you're just doing by yourself.
Well, I'm doing that one through Line Webtoons.
Okay.
They're an online comic service. So
okay.
They are fantastic.
Awesome. All right, so if you haven't read Love and Capes, folks, go read it. If you haven't read Long Distance, go read it. Our good buddy Jesse Jackson and I will eventually get to reviewing Love and Capes Volumes 3 and 4 and Long Distance at some point. I don't know when that's going to be, but it'll be some point. But one of Tom's two new creator-owned projects is called Warning Label. It is your most recent release. Time and Vine is out, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, but I've already seen an interview with a few other websites where you've talked about Time and Vine, so I think the info on that is kind of out there, so I kind of want to jump on the Warning Label bandwagon. When did you come up with the idea for Warning Label and kind of give people the basic premise of what the series is going to be?
All right, so I started talking with Line Webtoons. I'm just going to call them Webtoons in October, and they wanted some stuff from me. So I pitched them about 4 different ideas in November, and one of them that I came up with was Warning Label. And they said, "This is awesome. We need to do this one." So then we decided to do Warning Label. The concept behind it is there's a guy and a girl at a bar. They're hitting it off, and the girl says, "Just so you know, this is going to get weird in a minute." The guy says, "Why? I'm just going to ask you out." And then there's a flash of light, and suddenly a warning label appears because she has been cursed by her ex-boyfriend that anytime some guy asks her out, they get the warning label of everything they need to watch out for. And then on top of that, they go on a date, and one of the things on the list, and this is chapter 3, so if you don't want to be spoiled, don't skip ahead like a minute. But one of the things on the list is emotionally unavailable, and she opens up about how much she hates having the warning label. He walks her home, and then as he's leaving, he looks at the warning label, and then he notices that emotionally unavailable has disappeared, and that's when they realize the list can be beaten.
Mm-hmm. Very awesome. Now, when you say you pitched them several ideas and Warning Label is the one they said that they wanted to do, how long had this idea been festering in your creative brain before you actually, had the full concept of it?
This was not one of my deepest pitches. I had the idea for it over the summer, and just kind of shelved it and said, "Well, I'll get to that when I'm ready." Mm-hmm. And when I was pitching them stuff, I tried to pitch. My agent puts it as, think of the things that people who like your work would want to see you do next. Mm-hmm. So rather than me pitching some dark horror series that has nothing to do with anything I've done before, I was trying to pitch something that was like that there was a commonality, that people who like Love and Capes and Long Distance would go, "Oh, well, this certainly seems like the kind of book Tom would do, and it's different, and I think I'll try it." So I pitched a couple of those, but Warning Label was the most relationship comedy-ish version or thing that I pitched, and that's the one they went for. So then there was a lot of fleshing out. I have plotted this one out tighter than anything I've ever written before, because the way I work is that I can kind of make stuff up as I go along. I mean, I know the destination I'm going to, but I don't necessarily have it, printed out page by page, chapter by chapter. But in Warning Label, we see the list in, on like page 3 or panel 15 or something like that. See the warning label early, and I'm not going to be able to go back and change anything once I start writing it. So everything on the warning label, I have to figure out how or if it gets dealt with, exactly how the warning label works, who cursed her, how the curse works, all of that kind of stuff. So, and the Webtoons format is basically, in terms of comic book pages, it's roughly 5 pages a week. So I had to figure out how to tell that story in those type of chapters rather than like a 40-page comic book. It's a lot shorter. It's a little more punchy. So, but unlike anything else I've done, like with Time and Vine, I just turned in the 2nd issue. I have the 4th issue almost completely drawn. I have to dialogue the 3rd and the 4th yet. And there I can go back and I can, I could still change something in issue 2 if there was a better idea, or I needed to shade something, or if there was something that I, when I got to issue 4, I'm like, oh, if I make this reference in issue 2, this is going to seem really brilliant. I don't have that advantage with Warning Label. This had to be plotted out because I am working on it as the books come out, but I can't go back and fix anything.
Yeah, with Warning Label, it's going to be hard for me. Not because of the story, but because it's a weekly. Because I just saw the link like the day of that we did this interview, folks, and you had already had the first 3 chapters, so you already essentially have had the first 3 weeks of it done.
Yeah, Webtoons launches with 3 weeks on the first day. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how.
Yeah, so you didn't miss anything. It went
okay.
up. It went up yesterday.
Okay. But now my question is, great. I have to wait a week now to see the next. It's like television. Right now, how I enjoy television is I just enjoy going back and binging it on Netflix, Hulu, or whatever. I have not watched a week-to-week television show in over... Oh, okay, minus the superhero shows and stuff like that are actually on Hulu or wherever, where I can see them next day. But I have not actually watched a week-to-week television show in a really long time, and I'm used to binging it, and I'm like, great, now I have to just wait 3 weeks so I can binge this.
Well, honestly, I think if you do it right, that's part of the fun. I mean, it doesn't always feel like fun, but I'm a Babylon 5 guy, and I watched that as it aired. And I had a friend who got into it when it started airing on TNT, and I said, you're not a real Babylon 5 fan, because Babylon 5 fans had to wait for like 5 months for a new episode to come out, and there were so many clues, and it was such a tightly packed story that you just obsessed about, oh, I think this reference refers to this, and this is going to happen. But there are some shows where you need that breather between where you can really appreciate it. Because when you're binging shows, if it's the wrong show, it's just feeding you everything, and you're not engaging with it in quite the same way. I'm kind of picky about that. So like right now, House of Cards is out, and I love that show, but I won't binge it. I'll watch maybe 2 episodes a night, maybe. But like there's only 13 episodes, and when I'm done, I'm done, and I don't like. It's not a competition. I'm not trying to rush through it. I want to savor it and enjoy it, and try to play along and figure out what's happening or what Frank's plan is and all that kind of stuff. And that participatory nature, I think, sometimes gets lost in the binging.
I don't know. Like, I'm currently going back and watching through White Collar, and I'm only just now getting to the end of season 1, and I've only been watching it for 2.5 days. Off and on, not straight through, but off and on, And I don't know, I just find it a lot easier to binge watch.
Yeah, I mean,
than I do having to wait a week, having to wait on commercials.
See, I'm weird that way. I also don't mind commercials, but it's got to be the right show. I mean, White Collar, I loved White Collar, but it wasn't for lack of a better term, super plot heavy. There was a continuing story, but it wasn't so much what mystery are you going to solve. I guess in the first season he had that with his girlfriend. But yeah, it's just kind of the right tool for the right job. And I watch TV as I work. So watching live and having commercials, it's kind of like how the Apple Watch reminds you to stand every 45 minutes. When there's a commercial, it's like, well, hey, maybe you should think about getting some food or standing up or moving away from your desk. And I actually, I use TV as a metronome because I know that I know that Supergirl ends at 9:00, but then it's kind of like a stopwatch where I know what's going on in my day. There are times, I will say, where it's really fun to watch a show where you get lost in it and, like you're skipping commercials and you don't know how long it is. And that's interesting because you avoid that Law and Order problem of there are 10 minutes left in the episode and it looks like everything's wrapped, but it can't be. So where's the twist? You lose some of that, but it's just it's the right tool for the right job. And there's some shows that are spoiled online so much that I want to pay attention to when they're airing. It's not for everything. And I'm just saying how I like it. You can consume media in any way that works best for you.
Yeah, when I need to take a break, I don't use TV or a watch or anything else. As soon as my left knee starts screaming at me, it's like, okay, I need to stand up now. I always talk about the old coot that was a better barometer than the actual weather people. All right. So in Warning Label, you have the two main characters, Jeff and Danielle. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about them, if you can, without really spoil. Because, folks, if you've ever read Thom stuff before, you have to be in the moment to read it, and just at times laugh your ass off because. So I mean, you mentioned earlier, and I actually have the page where it's the first chapter open. It's not really a flash of light. The thing is on fire, dude. Yeah. I almost thought you were gonna put a yippee-ki-yay Mr. Falcon joke in. So yeah, what can you tell us about Jeff and Danielle without really spoiling too much about them?
Oh, that's rough. Jeff has a line early on where he says he doesn't want to define people by their jobs, so that's why he doesn't ask what she does first. They get along. They're both geeky. They're both sassy. They kind of don't let each other get away with too much. When the warning label appears, all the stuff that's on it, Danielle hates having the warning label, but she also completely cops to the fact that the stuff on the warning label is true. Mm-hmm. So when it says she's emotionally unavailable or doesn't want to hang out with your friends, she's like, "Yep, nope, totally true." So it's gonna be interesting to figure out what they're going to do to make things disappear from the list. But what you find out is that Danielle she doesn't like having the list. She accepts the fact that the stuff on the list is real, but that doesn't mean that she likes the fact that the list exists, because, as she puts it, she's leading with her worst qualities every time someone asks her out. So she's a little damaged in that respect. Not horribly so. Not horribly so, and she seems to deal with it. She's very confident. She's very opinionated. She seems to know what she wants. And she. There's a lot of you find out that she works for a gaming company, kind of in my head is kind of a Cards Against Humanity kind of place, based in Austin, and that informs a lot of her decisions because she really likes doing it, and she is very much it's probably in no way as bad or as insular as it used to be, but there's still conflict in being a woman in a largely male workforce. Even if it's not largely male anymore, there's still a lot of inertia there. So she is dealing with that. And Jeff will find out. He works at a place like the Alamo Draft House in Texas, and he's an assistant manager. And one of the things you'll find that he needs a little push yet. Like he's comfortable where he is, but he hasn't taken another step. But one of the things you find out is that he's been married before, and he's got his own kind of carbon scoring from that. And that's part of the reason that he relates to Danielle in this way, is that he's like, I've kind of been where you are. Like I went through a thing and it wasn't great, and you've got a thing, and I know that you don't come out of relationships the way that you went into them, which is why he's a little more forgiving, at least at the start.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun series, folks. Like I said, everyone should check it out. The link will be in the post for the interview here. If you've never read any of Thom's work, this is a perfect series to get used to his sense of humor and his styling. I gotta say, you and your colors, man.
So I'm not taking the blame for this one. What happened was Webtoons said, "Hey, we think it'd be cool if you did a limited color palette." Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to do what I had done on Time and Vine, because that was very specific to that book, and I liked it, but I don't like repeating myself. Mm-hmm. In fact, color vexes me so much that I actually brought in a colorist for Time and Vine. I'm sorry, yeah, it said Time and Vine. I meant Warning Label. Brought in a colorist for Time and Vine, but with Warning Label, Webtoons wanted a limited color palette, and so the compromise, or the way I thought to hit it, was that the colors of a Warning Label are red and yellow and black, and I turned the black a little bit brown, and I mixed those colors together. I mixed a red, a yellow, and a dark brown, and that gives me the entire color palette for the book. It actually changed the location. In the original pitch, they're based out of Seattle, and every time I started thinking about the colors, I'm like, there's no way red and yellow is Seattle. Seattle is too green and wet. But yeah. Austin worked as a location for all sorts of reasons. Is exactly the place. Cards Against Humanity is actually in Chicago, but Austin has a lot of like upstart companies like that, and they've got a fair number of gaming companies down there, video game companies, which is where you find out Danielle started working. So I thought it was an interesting place to go. It gives the book a different feel. I try not to repeat myself too much, and it's hard, especially doing largely relationship books, because I feel like there's a pattern to the way that goes with a lot of people. I don't want every book to be they meet and then they talk to their best friends and then they get back together. Though that I think is what happens when you meet somebody, is that you leave and then you tell people about them and then you get back together with them. So it's finding different ways to structure that and give it a different cadence, make it something that I haven't done before, because I've done the stuff before and I did it right, and I wanna keep pushing, keep doing new things.
So here's my question.
Yes.
Besides the fact that before I ask my end all be all fan wank question here, how far are you planning to? What is the set series run for Warning Label? Is there a set series run, or is it I'll just do it until I feel the story's done, or what's the plan here?
It is a finite story, probably run about 30 weeks or so. Okay. I have flexibility to expand if I want to. But I think for this story, it is important that it ends. It doesn't necessarily mean that the series ends, right. But it's very much a TV season. Like Webtoons and I, we've agreed that we're going to do X number of strips. Right. So, yeah, there's a definite end to this part of the story.
So once this part of the story ends, Jeff and Danielle are going to head down to Australia and run into Carter and Lee, right? Right? Come on.
I want to. The weird part of that question to me is that I keep changing the art style a little bit too. So, it would kind of be like when the critic visited The Simpsons. Like, you're not the same as you're not built the same. But I want to do a little bit more of that. That kind of J.J. Abrams, Brad Bird, Pixar kind of references to each other and everything. There's at least one scene in Long Distance where you see that Lee gets an email saying that Love and Capes, has a new episode on tonight, like it's become a TV show.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's an Apollo's Coffee in Love and Capes, but there has been in Time and Vine. There has been in Long Distance. There definitely is in Time and Vine. I'll probably figure out a way to work that into Warning Label. I would like to build some sort of, not so much a shared universe, but a universe with certain common points to it. The same way that there's always an A113 in a Pixar film, or just something like that. So there's some sort of stitching between them.
Well, yeah. I mean, after you did Love and Capes, you had Long Distance, and in Long Distance there were at least 3 or 4 references throughout that series to Love and Capes.
And there is a really weird reference to Raider in that series, which nobody ever read. But there's an evil doctor in the second Raider, and she winds up being the good doctor who gives Lee her job in Long Distance. I just kind of decided that, hey, I don't want to design another character, and I already worked this one out, and so she just has to be not evil, as far as we know. But I don't want Long Distance to take place in a universe with superheroes, so that's part of.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, okay, the way that I'm looking at the 3 universes is, Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3. Pick whichever one you want, whichever one to be on. But it's one of those things where, in Long Distance, the references to Love and Capes, it's like it's in another world. Like it could be like you said, it could be just a TV series or whatever. Because one of the big references for that was that LaCroix Pictures was putting out Dracula Dead and Loving It 2 or something or other. Yeah.
Frankendrac 2, whatever.
Frankendrac 2, there you go. And of course, they fall asleep in the movie theater. But yeah, no, because I remember when you were teasing this stuff on Twitter and Facebook, and I'm like, what is he working on? Those characters kind of look a little, that style is a little familiar. And now that I'm actually seeing this, I'm like, hey, it would not be outside the possibility of Warning Label being in the Long Distance universe, or at least the 2 of them having a shared universe. Yeah, that would be funny.
That's true. Although they seem to know an awful lot about curses in in Warning Label.
Absolutely. All right, so Time and Vine. Give us a little bit of background on that.
All right. This is the winery comic I wrote so I could write my wine bills off for a year. There's a magical winery that if you go down to the right tasting room and you drink the right bottle, and the bottle's from 1912, you go back to 1912 until you sober up. It's wine as a time travel method. And it kind of came about, if I remember right, Kurt Busiek made some joke about writing a comic book about a winery, and there's something about the way he said it where I'm like, oh, wait, I know how to do that. And I came up with the concept, and then really quickly I came up with the superstructure for it. I knew what the overarching arc was going to be, and it's one of those things where when you write the pitch, there's essentially a paragraph where you say, and then they have adventures, and then it ends this way, and figuring out and then they have adventures is always the tough part.
Mm-hmm.
So the story is still structured very much the way I intended it, but the things that happen in the middle are not what I intended them to be. I still get to the same place, but their characters became more important and their stories became more involved and more interesting than what I had originally intended. So I'm really happy with it.
Now this, like Long Distance, is going to be a 4-issue series.
Correct. 4 double-sized issues, same format as Long Distance.
You said that you are working with a colorist on this, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that person?
So his name is Luigi Anderson. He is amazing. He is incredibly talented, incredibly fast. He worked with me on all sorts of things to make this the book that I wanted it to be, and it's really interesting to me because I actually did color the first 8 pages, and they're horrible. And I couldn't. So he recolored everything. But my brain couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with the book. Long Distance, Love and Capes, Time and Vine, they all have a very particular coloring style, and there's it's almost math. I mean, I can tell you how to color in that style and make it look right, and it wasn't working for for Time and Vine. It wasn't capturing what I wanted to capture, and I couldn't figure it out, and I was getting a little behind on the book, and I didn't know how I was going to color everything in time. And then at Comic-Con, my buddy Tony Felice introduced me to Luigi, and I showed it to him. He's like, "Man, I'd love to color this." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'll pay you for it. Can you do a page?" And he did a page, and it was great. And I'm like, "Oh, there were a couple things we had to talk about, but they weren't big things. It was like, oh, well, this is how I envision this." One of the things I want there to be a different look between each time period. Kind of like if you watch any of the CSI shows, they're all filmed in LA, but back in the day, CSI Miami, was super saturated and golden, as opposed to, the kind of deserty look that they had on CSI, and then the really desaturated gray style that they had for CSI New York. And I want each time period to be visually different, so that when they go back to the 60s, it's a little brighter and more pop art colors. When they go back to the 1800s, it's a little more sepia toned. And there's a baseline for what the winery looks like in present day. And he is doing such amazing things with light. I can't, his brain works in an entirely different way than mine, and it works out so well. There's some scenes which are just painfully nice. I want to live in the world that he's painting.
Yeah, I can't wait for Time and Vine. That's going to be an awesome, awesome series. And it just seems like would be any wine aficionado's comic book.
Yeah. I like going to wineries, so that's part of what inspired the book.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. What other things are we expecting from you this year? You got any major convention appearances you're going to be making?
Yes, as near as I can tell, I'm at all of them. So coming up, I will be at HeroesCon in Charlotte, and then I will be at Denver Comic-Con in Denver. I will, at some point, I will be doing a signing at Cardist Comics and Collectibles in Baltimore. Then I will do Comic-Con in San Diego. I think I'm off mostly for the month of August. I certainly hope so. And then it's Dragon Con and Baltimore Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con. And I know I've got a convention in November, but that hasn't been locked down yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's like all of them.
It's like all of them, yeah. Obviously, because Time and Vine is through IDW, we know it will eventually be collected in a trade paperback form. Will Warning Label be collected in a trade paperback form at all?
So I don't know about that. It's built so it can be, but it kind of depends on the success of the series. I mean, it's designed to have that as an option, but I don't know if that option will be taken. So right now it just exists as a webcomic, and it's kind of in its own way the same way that I designed Love and Capes, where Love and Capes was designed to work in 4 panels. So I could put it online if I wanted to. It was a really interesting design challenge to figure out how to build a page that would work well as a comic book, but also work well as a webcomic. There are other compromises to it, like the lettering has to be bigger on the webcomic so that it reads right, but I can use the negative space between panels for lettering. There's the scene where Jeff says that the list can be changed. His word balloon is in the space between that last panel and the second last panel. But so there are panels that I will tweak to make them better on the website, but I've designed them so they'll work well if it ever goes to print.
Awesome. All right, tell everybody where they can find. You guys can get Time and Vine. You can pre-order it digitally on Comixology, or I don't know if IDW has their own service yet, but anyway, you can also tell your local comic shop about Time and Vine. Where can they get Warning Label?
They can go to webtoons.com, and if you do bit.ly/warning label, that'll take you right there.
Awesome. And your website is
ThomZ.com. THOMZ.com.
Awesome. All right, folks, I'd like to thank Tom for taking the time to chat with me, and we will catch him again soon. I don't know, maybe later this year. Who knows? Depends on what kind of emotional damage he causes me with this warning label bit. Because I actually asked. I'm not afraid to admit this. After I read the first 3 chapters, I actually messaged one of my ex from almost 20 years ago. We've been friends, off and on. It's been a long time since the breakup. So I said, you need to read this. After you're done, make me a list.
You're a braver man than I am.
Yeah, well. Oh, boy. All right. Yes, you can find Tom on Twitter. It's at Thom Zahler. You can find him on his website and everywhere else as well.
I'm on Instagram now, too, at Thom Zahler. So.
Awesome. I still haven't gotten the hang of that. I don't do mobile, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Follow at the Pullbag on Twitter as well. We will catch you next time. Make your great escape into comics. Go check out Warning Label and Time and Vine when it hits later this month, I believe. Because issue 1 is not out yet.
Issue 1 is July.
Oh, okay. Next month. Next month is Time and Vine, folks. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me tonight.
It's a time travel comic. You can barely pin it down. Don't worry.
Why do I always have to cut these things so damn close? All right. Make your great escape into comics. We will catch you next time.
See ya.
Lois, I'm home. I had a train derailment in Canada, an orphanage fire in London, and a dam broke in India. Did you make something for dinner? Oh, my gosh! What happened?
Lex Luthor.
The rat.
Where's Lois?
She was here just a second ago.
Probably scared witless, poor thing.
Don't worry. I'll have you out of that thing in no time. Okay, let's see now. Do I disconnect the black wire or the white one?
Don't worry, I'll save you. What do you think?
Oh,
What do I think? Lois, I think you got some splaining to do.
Clarky, if we're going to be partners and we're going to be married, I want to be part of the act.
Lois, there are things I do you can do. Me, Superman.
Me, super wife.
us super in trouble. Could you hold this argument till later and get us out of here?
I knew this was going to happen. First you know who I am, then you want to fire me, next thing you're going to fire yourself in the head.
Uh-oh. Wee.
Ay, caramba! You exploded them.
Oh, Clarky. Well, I can explain why they exploded.
Ay, ay, ay. Hola.